the most secretive company on Earth, and the orphan who built it.
Every year, this company makes approximately $12 billion. It sells over 1 million products. It is the most recognized luxury brand on the planet, and it has never, not once, published its revenue, its profit, its production numbers, or held a press conference. In the 121-year history of this company, its founder gave exactly one public interview, 9 months before he died. We know almost nothing about the inside of Rolex, and that is entirely by design. The founder of the world's most secretive luxury empire started life as an orphan whose family took everything from him. By age 12, Hans Wilsdorf had no parents, no inheritance, and no future in Bavaria. He moved to Switzerland, learned the watch trade at a pearl exporter, and by age 24 had moved to London to start his own watch business. He named the brand Rolex in 1908, choosing the word because it sounded the same in every language, could fit on a watch face, and was easy to remember. It was the 20th century's first global brand name, designed before branding was even a concept. When World War I broke out in 1914, Hans Wilsdorf had a problem. He was a German citizen running a British company in London. Anti-German sentiment was exploding. He moved Rolex to Geneva, Switzerland, neutral territory. He became a British citizen, and he never looked back at Germany again. Or so the official story goes. Because 30 years later, MI5 would be looking very closely at what Hans Wilsdorf was really doing during the war.
The money machine, selling time at 1,000% markup.
The entry-level Rolex Oyster Perpetual retails at around $6,000. The cost to manufacture it, materials, movement, assembly, quality control, is estimated by industry analysts at $500 to $800. That is a markup of 650 to 1,100%. The Submariner, their most famous sports watch, retails at $9,100. Cost to make? Approximately $1,000 to $1,500. You are not paying for a watch. You are paying for 121 years of marketing so good, even a dead man's brand makes the same margin as the Silicon Valley software company.
In 2024, Rolex produced 1.18 million watches. That is fewer than the year before, despite demand being higher than ever. In 2023, they made 1.24 million and reduced production in 2024 deliberately. Why? Because the moment Rolex makes enough watches to satisfy demand, the waiting list disappears. And the waiting list is the product. A Submariner you can walk in and buy today is worth less than a Submariner you had to wait 18 months for. Rolex understands this better than any company on Earth. Scarcity is not a side effect of their manufacturing capacity. Scarcity is the business model.
In 1944, Hans Wilsdorf's wife, Florence, died. They had no children. Wilsdorf didn't want to sell the company. He didn't want shareholders. He didn't want Rolex listed on a stock market. So, he created the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation, a private charitable trust, and transferred 100% of Rolex shares into it. Upon his death in 1960, Rolex became permanently owned by a charity, a foundation that pays no dividends, has no shareholders, publishes no accounts, and answers to nobody. In Geneva, people call it a state within a state. The foundation owns not just Rolex, but an enormous real estate portfolio across Geneva. It built a 280-foot bridge over the Rhone River, and it has never, in 64 years, sold a single share of Rolex. The secrets that never leave Geneva. The MI5 files describe Wilsdorf as, quote, most objectionable and, quote, suspected of espionage. A 1943 MI5 report states bluntly, quote, Wilsdorf and his wife are majority shareholders, and he is suspected of espionage on behalf of the enemy. The British consul in Geneva reported that Wilsdorf's own brother was directly involved in Nazi propaganda efforts across Europe. The Ministry of Economic Warfare discussed blacklisting Wilsdorf entirely, but decided against it because doing so might harm Rolex's trade inside the British Empire. Rolex was too valuable to burn, even if its founder was helping the other side. The MI5 story gets darker. In 1944, approximately 1,000 Rolex watches were supplied to German Kampfschwimmers, elite Nazi combat divers who were being trained under fascist Italian commanders after Italy's armistice. Meanwhile, Wilsdorf had offered free Rolex watches to Allied prisoners of war in German captivity, a gesture MI5 suspected was designed to gain favor with Britain and avoid being blacklisted, rather than genuine goodwill. He needed both sides to survive. He was playing both sides, and it worked. For over a decade, Rolex banned every authorized dealer in France from selling its watches online. For 10 years, while the entire luxury industry moved to e-commerce, while Louis Vuitton, Hermès, and Cartier all sold online, Rolex prohibited it, threatened dealers who tried, and cut off those who disobeyed. In December 2023, France's competition authority imposed a fine of 91.6 million euros, nearly $100 million, on Rolex, its holding company, and the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation directly. The regulator called it serious. Rolex said the ban was about fighting counterfeiting. The regulator rejected that argument entirely, and noted that Rolex itself had launched an online pre-owned program. The ban wasn't about counterfeiting. It was about control. In 2021, a whistleblower employee of CD Peacock, an authorized Rolex and Patek Philippe dealer in Chicago, filed a federal lawsuit under the RICO Racketeering Act. Her accusation, the dealership was secretly routing the most sought-after Rolex models, Submariners, Daytonas, GMT Masters, to foreign gray market resellers where they could be flipped for 2 to 3 times retail price. The heart of the scheme, the lawsuit states, was, quote, a conspiracy to illegally sell Rolex watches to foreign gray market dealers to enrich themselves. The employee was fired when she refused to participate. She sued for wrongful termination and racketeering. Meanwhile, the gray market for Rolex watches globally is estimated at over $5 billion per year, money that Rolex itself never sees.
How Rolex prints $12 billion without telling anyone.
In August 2023, Rolex shocked the entire watch industry with a single announcement. It was acquiring Bucherer, the largest luxury watch retailer in Europe, with over 100 stores, including 53 Rolex locations. The deal gave Rolex direct control of its own retail distribution for the first time in its history. The day after the announcement, shares in Watches of Switzerland, Bucherer's biggest competitor, plunged 21% on the London Stock Exchange. Billions of market cap wiped in 24 hours. Rolex had said nothing publicly for months about the deal. It closed it before anyone knew it was coming. A foundation that doesn't talk, making moves nobody sees.
A Rolex Daytona purchased at retail in 2015 for $12,400 was worth over $35,000 on the secondary market by 2022. That is a 182% return in 7 years. The S&P 500 returned 116% in the same period. A steel sports Rolex has, over the past decade, outperformed most financial assets available to ordinary investors. But here is the problem. You cannot simply buy one. To get a Daytona from an authorized dealer, you need a purchase history, a relationship with a sales associate, and often years of waiting. The watch that beats the stock market is the one you are not allowed to buy.
Here is what makes Rolex unique among all the empires we have covered on this channel. Louis Vuitton is part of LVMH, publicly listed, quarterly earnings, regulated disclosures. Hermès is publicly listed on the Paris Stock Exchange. Rolex is owned by a private Swiss foundation and has never published a single line of financial data. The $11.9 billion revenue figure comes from Morgan Stanley and Lux Consult analysts, not from Rolex. The 30-40% profit margin is an estimate. The production numbers are estimates. The foundation's charitable donations are estimates. We know almost nothing with certainty about the financial reality of one of the world's most profitable companies. By design,
Rolex holds a 32% share of the entire global luxury watch market. Not watches overall, luxury watches, the segment above $1,000. Cartier, Omega, Audemars Piguet, Patek Philippe, and Richard Mille, the next 5 biggest brands combined, do not match Rolex's revenue. One company, no shareholders, no public data, no press, and more market share than all its serious competitors together. Hans Wilsdorf, the orphan from Bavaria who gave one interview in his entire life, built the most dominant single brand position in the history of luxury.
Is Rolex a genius business or the world's greatest illusion?
Rolex sells a product that has been technologically obsolete since 1970. Your phone tells time more accurately. Your smartwatch tracks your health, your location, your sleep. A Rolex does none of this. It tells time. That's it. And yet it sells for $9,100 minimum and appreciates every year. Why? Because Rolex understood something no tech company has ever understood. People don't buy a Rolex to tell time. They buy it to tell other people something about themselves. The Apple Watch tells you your heart rate. The Rolex Submariner tells the room your net worth. Utility versus identity. And identity will always win. The Hans Wilsdorf Foundation is described as a charity. Rolex presents itself as a company whose profits fund good causes, but the foundation publishes no accounts. No one outside a small circle of trustees knows how much profit Rolex makes, how much goes to philanthropy, and how much is retained in the foundation. Swiss law does not require them to tell you. The only visible signs of the foundation's wealth are a beautiful bridge over the Rhone, some watchmaking scholarships, and arts funding in Geneva. For a company generating an estimated $12 billion a year, the charitable output is, by any measure, invisible. The rest stays in Geneva, tax-free, behind closed doors, exactly as Hans Wilsdorf planned. Hans Wilsdorf was investigated by MI5 as a Nazi spy. He supplied watches to German combat divers. He built his entire company behind a charitable trust to avoid public scrutiny. He gave one
interview in his entire life. His company was fined nearly $100 million for antitrust violations. Its dealers ran racketeering schemes in its name. And yet, Rolex is the most respected luxury brand on earth, the most copied, the most coveted, the one every other brand studies, because Wilsdorf, the Bavarian orphan who lost everything at age 12, understood one thing that no business school teaches. The less people know about you, the more they want what you make. Secrecy is not a liability. In the right hands, secrecy is the product. And for 121 years, Rolex has sold that product to the tune of nearly $12 billion a year without saying a single
Rolex.